warehouse management solutions, what comes first, hardware or software? First of all, who we are and how we can help you. So we have a 20 years experience in the development and implementation of WMS systems worldwide. And we have a partnership with ViaStore, and ViaStore is one of the worldwide leaders in logistic automation. It's more than 40 years experience in this issue. Of course, we understand that WMS is one of the key IT factors in supply chain automation, and I would like to share with you some of our best practices experience in warehouse automation. So today's conversational goals, we are starting from the situation when your company decided to automate the warehouse. Of course, this is a very long process with significant investments, time investment and money investment and whatever. The question is where to start from, hardware or software. We will look at different scenarios to help find the right answer to that. First of all, a definition of hardware and software, how we will see it. Software, this is WMS, and the modules that are behind and around the WMS, yard management, transportation management, labor management, etc. And hardware here in this presentation means mechanical hardware, storage retrieval machines, conveyors, carousels, whatever. And of course, we all understand that traditionally, hardware is purchased first, and then the software is installed. However, there are many situations that, of course, I will note, where the software components are required prior to the hardware, and this determines the direction of future purpose and use. When hardware comes first, this is the most traditional implementation, because, of course, we all know that hardware is much less flexible than software. Hardware is ugly in terms of customization. It's not easy to customize hardware. It's not easy to change old style hardware with a new one. And of course, you must link to the warehouse topology of the selected equipment during the warehouse design phase. And the mistake making in hardware choice can be a mistake in topology and whatever. Hardware costs exceed software costs. Of course, you can replace software easier than the hardware. And you buy the hardware knowing that it can only do specific jobs, while software can be continuously modified and updated to fill your needs. These are obvious things. So it's logically, first step is the hardware is implemented. But I would discuss with you more interesting things where software will come first. There are some complicated and demanding warehouse structures that this usually requires software solution first. It includes sophisticated warehouse topology with a great number of different zones, a different process inside these zones, many step transportation tasks, etc. When WMS is one of the elements of the complex supply chain IT infrastructure, ERP, MES systems, yard management, TMS, and whatever. There are exceptionally secure trading requirements for products, maybe such for drugs, controlled substances, hazardous materials, extremely high value goods, and maybe specific equipment is used. Glasses, speak by voice commands, augmented reality, or highly specialized robotics. And now I will go to our concrete real example. It's a warehouse we implemented 5 years ago. This is a pharma warehouse, and we all know that pharma logistics is double times important than before, because they live in a new reality. And this is a real topology of a real distribution center that is working with more than 1,500 drugstores and hospitals. And you can see the topology is not an easy, it's a complex one. We have receiving zone, we have a put away inbound zone, We have a pallet storage area with narrow aisle, so we need 2 steps, transportation tugs there. We have some area for sublease, and we have some specific areas. We have an area for cold storage, where Pick by Voice is. This is on the top, that Pick by Voice is working. We have a special area for drugs, where the special control is needed. And we have a mezzanine for small parts. We have a pick-to-belt area for boxes, a small automation area on the left side. It was a real customer, and the customer started with the choice of a hardware for automation area. It appeared that it was a mistake because there is many suppliers of automation. Automation needs is pick by lights and A-frames for faster picking, for semi-automatic picking and full automatic picking, but it is limited to automation area. And it appeared that it's a lot of hardware vendors here, but it's not easy to get a WMS with so sophisticated functionality. And you know that the heart of the pharma functionality is a lot tracking. When you need to track every lot over the supply chain, starting from vendor, then going to distribution center and to every drugstore and every hospital. And in case of some of the lots are blocked by the vendor, these quantities must be blocked in the warehouse bins, in drugs, stores, whatever. So it means that we need a very sophisticated WMS to cover all this functionality. And finally, the customer turned to a choice of WMS that needed, that can cover all his functionality, and the requirement for him was that this WMS can be integrated in the automation hardware you needed. In some cases, we need the complex solution, and it's not possible to start with a software or hardware. Imagine you have a very complex site with a couple of automated areas equipped by hardware from different vendors, and material flow is very tricky with many step movements between areas. You need some specific optimized solutions where different machines work in parallel and are managed from one source. And the ideal solution in this case is to purchase software and hardware from one vendor. But of course, this is not always achievable because of the limited functionality of some software WMSs from one vendors or different hardware lines from a software, from a hardware. Can you see another example? Yes, it's also a real example. This is not a warehouse. This is a warehouse of paper. This is a paper archives of one of the biggest banks in Europe, where we are storing paper documents by 75 years old to modern times. It's a lot of documents, more than 50 million documents that are stored in boxes. There are more than 2 million boxes, and boxes are stored on pallets. Pallets are stored in high bays, and the simplest process is if the manager in the office of this bank wants to order some document, he only pushes a button and the system starts to search for this document inside this great archive. Then the box with these documents is found, and then the crane is moving to this place, and the crane takes the pallet with a number of boxes with these papers and moves it to this special area for robotics, and robots takes the needed required box, puts it on the conveyor, and conveyor with this box is moving to the manager. This is a simple way of how to explain, but it's a very hard process for the customer to choose. And finally, the customer choose the solution where the most of the equipment and the WMS was from the one vendor. And this vendor was our partner, Viastor. So some words who we are. Our company, First Light Software, was founded 12 years ago. We have a seasoned management team with more than 25 years in software development. Our global headcounts, our revenue, more than $30 million. We have 3 delivery centers in Europe and global presence in the United States, Netherlands, Russia, UK, Czech Republic, Germany, Australia, Sweden. We are partners of Viastor. More than 12 years experience in warehouse logistics, WMS, material flow control. We have core competence in the networking, digitization, automation and material flows, and 12 plus years team partnerships with Viastor. As a global leader in warehouse logistics, Viastor has more than 500 customers worldwide. We adopt WMS as the industry standard software for management and control of the entire material flow along the value chain. And all core Viadat development is done with FirstLine and Viastor teams. Here's some words about Viastor and the specific issue for Viastor that Viastor has 2 teams, Viastor Software and Viastor Systems. Viastor Software provides WMS Viadat with sophisticated functionality, and Viastor Systems provides hardware for warehouses. This is cranes and many specific hardware to fit many needs of the warehouse personnel. This is Viastor Software about the top providers in the market. Some of our software projects worldwide, you can see here. It's more than 500 rollout projects worldwide. And some of these projects are in UK, but only few of them. In conclusion, so despite things seem that obvious at first glance, it's not an easy task to define what must go first in the warehouse automation process. The answer of what to start with, hardware or software, depends on many circumstances. I try to explain to you some of them. So we looked at some examples. These are real examples of our expertise to highlight some problematic issues. And of course, the ideal choice is to get your entire solution from one vendor, but it's not an easy task to find this software. But we can suggest a vendor who provides both hardware and software solution for your warehouse needs. We can discuss some issues later today or another day. So thank you for taking part. Now I'm waiting for your questions.
Thank you so much, Andrei, for your presentation. That was really interesting. We do have a few questions for you. So the first question asks, what is an approximate budget ratio between warehouse management software and hardware?
This is a good question. It's not easy to answer because it differs. The ratio differs from the very simple warehouses to very complex one. And I think we are starting from 5–10% of software for the warehouses with a big quantity of hardware, and about 30% software for middle-sized warehouse with middle-sized hardware, and of course 100% for manual warehouse with no hardware at all.
So how important is the link between hardware and software?
Yes, it's of great importance. And it's of great importance. And our software solution has a special module, material flow control, that is a link from WMS to a hardware, to program logistic controllers, and we can use it. And we can use it with our own hardware, and we can use it with the third-party hardware as well.
Good. Yes. So how easy is it to implement a WMS, a digital WMS system to replace existing manual processes? How easy is it to switch from the digital from the manual process?
In one word, it's not easy. In one word, it's not easy because you need a very big quantity of issues to be covered. Of course, you need a team from the customer side that knows their processes well, and then that can make a function that can describe the functionality to a vendor of WMS. And you need work of both teams in one team, both team of vendor and team of customer. And warehouse must be prepared to the implementation, because you need master data to be clear. No mistakes in master data inside the warehouse, because if you download the master data with mistakes to our WMS, that you bury your warehouse mistake in our system, and there will be too much problems after that. Approximately, we need about from 5 to 8 months for implementation, like that. There is implementation methodology. There are 6 phases from the beginning. We are starting from the IT specification, then we go into for modeling, then we install the software on site of the warehouse and the go live. And the problem, today's problem, is that we need, in some cases, we need eye-to-eye, face-to-face communication with the customer, and then really, in a new reality, we must to eliminate this face-to-face cooperation. So we developed a new methodology that allows to implement the solution remotely, almost 100% remotely. Only looking to each other through the screen. We are preparing the team of a customer team before, from the very first phase. So the customer teams to the final phase of the implementation can implement the solution without our presence on site. We are only remotely. We are of course controlling, we are monitoring the situation, but we are on the other side of the screen.
Of course. So we have time for 2 more questions. So what are some of the more difficult problems that warehouse operatives face, and how can an effective WMS system fix these problems? So right now, there's been a surge in e-commerce orders. There's a lot of people at home ordering stuff online. That can be really difficult for some warehouses, especially some of the little ones that don't have, extensive technology. So how can a WMS help fix these issues and make it easier for products to be delivered to the end customer?
First of all, WMS optimizes all the processes inside the warehouse. The first task is optimizing processes. The next task is to give the warehouse workers right tasks to implement. So I can say that WMS is like 2 sides of the moon. The first side of the moon is can be very sophisticated solution, but it is inside the system. From the other side, we must give the floor workers who are not so who do not have many knowledge on warehouse logistics, very simple tasks to make. We give the warehouse floors workers a task that can be very simple one on the screen, and the warehouse worker has only 2 choices. One choice is to do this task, and the other choice is not to do this task. If he cancels the task, he must feel the purpose why he can't do it. And the purpose, there are only a few purposes. There are no SKU in a bean. There is a lack of SKU in a bean. There is a missed SKU in a bean. There's a broken SKU in a bean. So it's very simple solution. And our slogan is, if the worker knows how the smartphone works, then he can work with our Viada.VMS. and even our terminal is simpler than a smartphone, because you have to do only one task, to do or not to do.
Perfect. So I guess one final question would be, what do you think is next for WMS systems, and what is the next big technology in these kind of systems for different warehouses?
There are some technologies that are very close to our functionality. For instance, the glasses of reality. There are some, we are working on that in our laboratories. And the other issues is more global, about the supply chain. You know that the WMS is a part of supply chain. And supply chain is evaluating, and WMS must be evaluating with the supply chain at all. So the task is to make a smart integration with all the modules inside the supply chain.
Perfect. Well, do you have anything else to say, Andrei?
Yeah, it's all for me. Thank you all for participation.
That was great. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to speak to us. That really was an interesting topic to discuss. I've actually written a few warehouse management system features for our publication, Logistics Manager magazine. So I personally find it quite interesting. And yeah, we really appreciate you coming on to speak to us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that's it from Andrei. We are now going to go to a quick break until 2:30, where we hear from our next speaker. Thank you so much, Andrei. Bye-bye.